All right, I'm going to be going over our flip tracker and our offer calculator. So this is an example from one of our most recent flips. If you are doing flips, you need to be tracking everything to the penny. If you don't do that, you're going to end up with some serious issues, especially if it's a tight deal. One of our first flips, we did not track stuff correctly, and then by the time we got to the end, we realized, oh man, like we didn't make any money on this. So this is what we've created, and this is what we use on every flip that we do. And I'll run through it with you, and then also run through how we actually make an offer, whether you're wholesaling or flipping. And this is posted in the Skool group. I'll have it on our Facebook page as well. So right here, we'll start off with the purchase date and the resale date. So you can use this flip spreadsheet before you buy a flip. Obviously, use it during the flip. But if you want to kind of like estimate what you can make based on what your GC or contractor that you use charges, what private money or hard money charges. So what I'll do to start off is I put the purchase price in there and then the total loan amount. So that's the loan amount for the purchase price, the loan amount for the repair to get the total loan amount. And then I put the day we purchase it, and then you can, if you are using this before you flip, I would use a rough estimation of when you think it will close by, meaning once you've done the repairs and someone actually purchases it. So I would always overestimate how long it's going to take so you can, come up with very conservative numbers. It's just like when you're running comps, you want to underestimate the ARV and overestimate repairs. I do the same with when it's going to sell. So our private money lender, this is what we're going to be looking at here. This is what they charge, 11%. They charge points up front, but since that's paid out at closing, I'm not going to include it in here. And so our loan amount was 211 for the purchase price, 31,000 for the repairs, total loans 242. They charge 11% interest. I have days of the year, so 365 days. So the annual interest is this total loan amount times the interest rate. You can then figure out the monthly interest by dividing the annual by 12, and then the daily by dividing the annual interest by 365. So total interest paid is going to be the daily interest right here times how many days on the loan. So right here, we started this loan on 10/14, we closed it on 2/27, so there was 136 days. We can calculate the total interest paid at $9,919. And then we had a second loan because we went over budget on our repairs. We don't like to use our own money, so we took out a second loan. The loan amount was this number right here. That's what the remaining GC was. GC fee was over here. This was 11%. Same exact thing. We paid back $485. It was from November 24th to the day it closed, 2/27, so 95 days. So before you even start, I like to have a little checklist here. So we always get a house inspected. If it's a house that doesn't need a ton of work, if it's a house that's just a complete disaster, like a hoarder house and you need to redo everything, we don't even get an inspection done by an actual home inspector because they're going to look at it and be like, the whole thing needs to be fixed. So what we'll do is actually have our contractor go in there, obviously give us bids and whatnot. So start utilities, start insurance, you need to have that done before closing. Property inspection, that's double on there. I think I included that for a building engineer, and then lockbox. And at the end, obviously you cancel all of that stuff. So I just have that as a checklist so you don't forget anything. So when we do a flip and we do an inspection, typically it's going to run somewhere between $300 and $500. There's investor level inspections, and then there's, in the state of Texas, TREC level inspections, which is a lot more in depth. We did a building engineer because there was foundation issues. So what we have them go in there, they're not a foundation company. What they do is show us where piers need to be added and what foundation work probably needs to be done. And then what we do is tell the foundation company based on their report what they need to do. So that way they can't, charge you for extra things or say, hey, you need to put in 15 piers when in reality you need to put in like 4 piers. So we pay for that. We had a lease back, so this person stayed in the house 2 weeks after we had purchased it. So we held back, I think, $10,000, and they actually stayed a few extra days. So we paid them back their lease back. That's what these two payments are. These are all GC payments. Staging, we try to get houses staged on most of our flips, especially in nicer areas. Staging can really range anywhere from like $1,500 depending on the size of the house, like all the way to like $5,000 if it's a bigger house and a pretty expensive company. And then you'll see miscellaneous payments here. So like water bill, pictures. This is from someone cleaning the house afterwards. Another water bill. We had to do some repair work after the fact. Had to replace the smoke detector batteries, water, electric again. We had a buyer. First buyer actually ended up backing out, but we did $700 in amendment repairs. I think we just had to do some touch-up paint, fix the GFCIs, things like that. Had to reorder an HOA resale package, and then just continued water and electric. So typically on a flip, we are going to be a little bit out of pocket. We never fund the deal ourselves. We always use private money. Same with repairs. If we have to go over, we'll get a second loan. And so out-of-pocket expenses are all of these things. So in reality, it's really this number minus the leaseback. So we're about close to $4,000 out of pocket for just miscellaneous items. So utilities, gas, electric, small fixes, pictures, inspection, things like that. Obviously, you can get reimbursed from that from a private money lender if you want, but we don't really care too much. So down here, we'll have the total repair cost, which is the summation of all of these. The total paid, so that's the total repair cost plus the staging plus the out-of-pocket. Out-of-pocket right here. So total amount paid back to our first lender. So this number is the total loan, so they're going to get their principal back, which is the 211 plus 31 plus their interest, and then the total loan paid back to the second loan, which is their principal plus interest. So right here at the top, we'll see out-of-pocket expenses, repair loan, leaseback. This is all kind of just tracking. But the way that we calculate a profit is the resale price right here. We typically do times 0.92 or 0.93, so 92 or 93%. So you're going to have about 3% for your buyer's agent unless you have someone that will do it for less. Typically 3% for the, 3% for the seller's agent unless they can do it for less. Typically 3% for the buyer's agent, and then 1 to 2% in closing costs. We always overestimate this a little bit. It seems like on the seller side, that repair or closing costs end up being a little bit cheaper than on the buyer side for whatever reason. I don't ever really look into it. I probably should know that. But right here, this is almost exactly what we ended up making on this flip, all in all. But what we did for the profit is, move this over on the right here, is the resale times 0.93 minus our out-of-pocket expenses minus the two loans paid back. And then you can come up with your profit. So this is what we use to track. I would always track all of your expenses, everything that you've spent money on here. You can use this beforehand to calculate roughly what you would make on a flip. What we do is we always say like, hey, $4,000 to $5,000 out of pocket. We already know what we're going to pay in interest. We have a very good idea of what we're going to pay from the GC side. The reason we went so over here is we end up having to replace all the flooring in the house because of the foundation work. And then we ended up fixing some things that we thought we weren't going to fix. So we actually redid the master bathroom. We had so much room that we knew it was fine to go over. Obviously, if we didn't spend an extra $17,000, we would have made more money, but we might not have sold it for this price. So this is what we use. I will copy this and put it into our Skool group. It's already in there, but this is the most updated version, so I'll throw that in there for you. All right, so in terms of actually making an offer, what we use, we typically just calculate using a calculator. I'll show you how to do it on here, and then I'll show you how to do it on a calculator, which is a lot faster. But if you want to use a spreadsheet, this wholesale target profit can also be a flip target profit. On a flip, you're definitely going to want to try to make, if you're not doing a lot of flips, like if you're going for bigger deals versus volume, we try to make at least 30 to 40 on a flip because you never know, the market could completely stall and it sells for a lot less. It could stay on market. So like you want to have a big enough spread, whereas if the market stalls and you go over budget on your repairs, you have some room. So this one right here, let's say the ARV is 400. I'm not gonna, I guess we'll go for a wholesale first. Like if you're gonna wholesale a deal, the ARV is 400. The person flipping the house, let's say they want to make 50K roughly, which on a $400,000 flip, you'd probably want to make at least that, or at least 40,000. So realtor fees and closing costs is going to be about 0.8. So 8% of this. And then repairs, let's go with 35,000. So if you're trying to make $20,000 on a wholesale, your first offer based on all this would be right around 248,000. Your max offer would be this, novation offer would be this, based on these repairs, based on this ARV, based on the end buyer flipping the house and making this much. Down here, we'll see rehab estimates. This is all subjective based on where you're at. People have different costs for contractors. Brick houses typically, they're going to cost a little bit more to fix up than siding because typically nicer. Whatever it is, what we use is $35 a square foot for cosmetics and then about 5 to 10 for each major. So what I mean by that is if you have 1,000 square foot house, for cosmetic fixes, meaning the floors, paint, everything inside of the house will go off $35 a square foot. So 1,000 square foot house times 35, that's 35,000. If you got to get a new roof, depending on the size of the house, slope of the roof, where you're at, all that good stuff, a roof is anywhere from $8,000 to $15,000 on a typical house. Huge houses, it could be $20,000, $30,000, $40,000. Foundation repairs depends on if it's slab or if it's pier and beam. Depends on how many piers you have to get put in. I would budget 5 to 10 in foundation repairs. If it's very minimal, it could be less than 5. Average, I'd say about 5. Severe would be about 10. Plumbing, to replace all the cast iron in the house. If it's a cast iron house, meaning it was built somewhere around 1975 or before, that can be anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000 to replace the cast iron and put in PVC. AC units depends on the size of the house, how many units you have. Average AC unit, I think in our area to put in a new unit's about 6,000 or so. Bigger houses definitely going to be more. But rule of thumb, $35 a square foot, and then just add 5 to 10 for each major item. Each major item is the roof, HVAC, plumbing, foundation, electrical. So if you're doing a flip, obviously this would be out of the question. Or you can just calculate it as your own profit. If you're looking to flip a house, you'd want to get it under contract at this price. What we also do is just this, using a calculator. Like if you know a house is going to sell for about $400,000, that's the ARV. Let's say that's your conservative ARV. You're going to do 400,000 times 0.92. So when you go to resell it, like I said before, you're going to lose 3% buyer's agent, 3% of the seller's agent, 2% for closing costs. So you're at 368. Let's say it needs to do $35,000 in repair, which is what I used on this one. And you're very certain it's going to be $35,000. Doesn't need a lot of work. So you're at 333, and then whatever the purchase price is. So like, let's say you're buying it for 248 minus 248. So you have about $85,000 in spread. What we have not calculated is your holding costs and your cost of private money. Some people have really cheap private money costs. Some people have more expensive. Some people have expensive holding costs. So on this one, this is a pretty expensive purchase price. Let's say there's about $15,000 in holding carrying costs. So that is your spread. So that's a really simple way is just take the ARV, multiply by 0.92, subtract out repairs, subtract out your purchase price, and then subtract out holding costs. And that's going to give you a rough estimate of what you can make on this deal. So all in all, flip spreadsheet, really good way to track everything. You can customize this however you like. Don't use it at all. It's super easy for us to use. There's already formulas in here. You can see everything. It's very straightforward. Same with the flip calculator. You can do this, or the offer calculator. You can do the same thing for sub 2, seller finance, and so on. Both of these are in the Skool group, in the classroom, down here at the bottom.